Welcome to the Painter Growth Podcast, where we help you scale your painting company in record time. Join us as we explore sales, marketing, hiring, finances, leadership, and more, everything that you need to know to scale and grow your painting business. I hope you enjoy and subscribe.
Hello at Painter Growth. Today, we have a very, very interesting episode on tap today. We have James Mitchell here, one of, I would say, it's hard to say top, but most engaged, best. It's hard to describe, all the adjectives I could use for you, James, because you're just an incredible person, incredible human being. And we have some really exciting things to share with you on this podcast today. James has been on a Painter Growth story before, mainly talking about the business side of things. We've been doing something within Painter Growth for coming up on a year now that I don't think really anybody knows that we've been doing. Last year, and before I go there, James, welcome, man. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm fantastic. Honestly, it's been an amazing day, really amazing start to the week, and I'm really excited about this call.
Awesome. Well, yeah, super excited to have you here and appreciate you taking the time to do this. So I'm just going to give people a little bit of context. So we started this thing called the Intuition Accelerator last January. That ran for about 13 weeks into early April. And then we continued on into this thing called the Intuitive Advantage. And for those of you guys that don't know, within Painter Growth, I do a lot of what's called intuitive coaching. And even with clients outside of Painter Growth, CEOs, founders that are doing 8-9 figures a year, I work with a number of them. And the best way I can explain intuitive coaching, and James, you can give me your 2 cents on this, but the best way that I can explain it is doing work on the subconscious mind, the 95% that is actually running your life, and going to the root of issues versus just treating symptoms. Do you have any other context to add on that, being more
on the receiving end of it?
On the receiving end of it, yeah.
Without going into too terribly much deep detail on it, I would say that for me, the intuitive coaching has meant opening up options that I had not considered before, maybe more into the spiritual category, and like you said, the subconscious. I've been a part of other businesses in the past that did lean a little bit on spiritual connections and self-development and things of that nature. None of them have impacted me in the way that you have with this Intuitive Accelerator and Intuitive Advantage program. So
very, very cool. I'm excited to dive into that. So James, just so people know, last year when your business, you did about what in revenue total?
My revenue last year was $179,000.
Okay. And this year, 2025, I think you just posted that your sales, what are you at year to date?
We just exceeded $823,000 in sales for the year.
Unbelievable. And you think you can make the push to $1 million?
It's going to be tight. I was on vacation visiting family last week, so I took 8 days off, and I no longer have a sales rep, so I'm handling the sales again myself. We didn't book a lot of estimates for this week, so I'm pushing very hard with everything I've got, every avenue I've got available to me. I would love to see that $1 million mark.
I love it. We're gonna make it happen, man. It's gonna happen. You're gonna hit $1 million, which would be basically 400% growth from last year, which is just unbelievable, man. Now, the cool part was a year ago, honestly, I feel like I hardly knew you. You're pretty new to Painter Growth at the end of the year. The one thing I remember, and I just want to acknowledge you for this, is last December, when we were launching a few different programs and we were competing in the school games, we had like the coaching, we had running Facebook ads for you, and then I launched this thing called the Intuition Accelerator. And James, without even knowing you at all, you're like, yep, I'm in. And the one thing that I remember is I was like, this guy is going to go so far, next year, just because of his all-in attitude and not holding anything back. So I just want to acknowledge you for that, man, because not a lot of people are just willing to make that jump and just literally throw everything you have over the wall. And you're now seeing it in the results and playing out. It's really cool to see. So I really want to acknowledge you for just being all in on your life and your business, man.
It's been quite the journey. Obviously it's it's not the easiest thing in the world to take a risk on something that you don't know, someone that you don't know very well. But I had actually been listening to the Painter Growth podcast for a while myself before I actually met you on a Zoom call. The spiritual development, the personal development and growth has always been something that has been attractive to me ever since I was a teenager. Read the How to Win Friends and Influence People when I was 14 years old. And, from 14 to 18, probably read 200 self-development books. So I had a little bit of a background and understanding and kind of how to program the subconscious, but it dropped most of that off as baggage almost for, quite a few years, getting beat up by real life, and had kind of lost track, I guess you could say, of some of the baseline concepts there and how to like develop personally.
That's it's so cool to hear that, you such an extensive background in it, and then, what we're able to do in this program was another level up from it. So let's dive into that. So I'm gonna give a little bit of context on the Intuition Accelerator. So I created this this method, this process, and it's called HAPP, HAPP, which is heal, align, power, and prosperity. And when I was creating this, it was what I started to understand from the work that and the coaches and mentors and everything that I had is human beings, we have these traumas in our subconscious mind, these open wounds. And when these wounds are open, you generally seek outside of yourself and you end up running around your entire life trying to fill these wounds from the outside in, right? And so when you feel a lack of something, right, you feel lack of money, or you feel lack of abundance and friends and whatnot, you can go out and you search and you try to fill that, but then you're left with that same feeling inside that you're still experiencing. And so by addressing these wounds from the inside out, it's like healing yourself. Take that wound, imagine it like a bullet hole, and we heal it from the inside out so that wound's no longer there. Then from that place, we can just go play the game, right? And as you heal that wound or that trauma in the subconscious mind, you naturally start to become more in alignment with your higher self, or who you truly are. Your soul, beyond the ego, beyond this character that we are playing in this life today. Then you naturally start to step more into the power of that being and who you are. You start to feel that power, and it's hard to put it into words, but it's a feeling. And then from there, you step more into prosperity in the forms of abundance, money, love, joy, all those things that you want to feel. Now, the difference here is that is done in a circular format. So it's like as you heal that one wound, or even a tiny portion of it, you become more in alignment, you become more in power, and you step more into prosperity. I've seen this in the past, and where I think people get stuck in the personal development, the personal development junkies, right? That is do personal development, but they never actually do something in their life. And so when I was thinking of this method, it's not a linear path, right? You don't have to heal everything to then get into alignment with everything, to then go into power with everything, to finally experience prosperity in those ways. It happens in a circular format. So as you heal that little wound, you become more in alignment, step more into your power, experience prosperity, and then you continue on that journey. And the deeper healing you do, then it just continues in the path. And then ultimately what happens is the universal law of as above, so below, which is as above meaning your internal being, who you are, then gets reflected in your external world, right? And as you do that deep work internally, everything in your external world just starts to unfold in a much more flowy type of way, is maybe the best way I can describe it, where you still experience challenges, right? You talked about them first. You said your sales rep just left. Doesn't mean your challenges go away, but the way you're able to deal with it and the way you're able to perceive it starts to shift dramatically.
If I could put that entire concept into, for me anyways, the number one thing, okay, so going back, I spent a lot of time being that self-development junkie in my earlier years. As I have been a part of 11 other businesses owned in my life, several of them came with a training program. Several of them came with their own variation of spiritual and self-development type growth. So when I got here, I truly believed, my ego had me believing that I knew enough without the extra help, that I just needed the systems. I just needed the basics. And not to say that you can't be successful with that, but for me, without letting my ego really letting my ego kind of get out of the way and listen and believe, have some faith. I truly don't believe that I would have had half the success this year that I have had. I wouldn't have half the growth because my ego would still be in the way. So I would say for me, and I imagine a lot of other entrepreneurs are going to be in a similar category, because like you, especially if you've been doing it for a long time, you believe that you've been doing this a long time. You know what you're doing. You could maybe need a little help here and there, but do you really need this extra level of guidance? Do you really need this extra level of like really truly attention on your worst characteristics? Where can you find ways to kind of soften some of the hard edges that are outlining the worst characteristics of the way you do things? And that's where I believe this program came into play for me the most directly.
I love it. Let's go into the that difference between ego and intuition. And running your business, you can run it from your ego, right? We talked about that, what that looks like, and then ultimately what we're helping work on is running from your intuition. Another way to say that is shifting from fear into love, right? So James, for you, do you remember, was there a certain time, was there a call that we did or a moment that you can remember that you actually felt when that shift occurred for you?
It was probably about a month and a half or so into the program when I had what I felt was my first like truly successful meditation period. You had suggested that recently suggested at that point that we attempt a 1 hour long meditation. Now, I couldn't even at the beginning of the program fathom 10 minutes of meditation because I had never succeeded in any variation of meditation at all. But I gave it a shot, and it was probably the fourth or fifth time that I sat down for an hour. I blocked an hour out of my schedule and my calendar, turned everything off to make sure I had no interruptions. And it was a guided meditation, mind you. Wasn't just dead silence, but that 1 hour felt like it took about 5.5 minutes.
Wow.
And at the end of that meditation, I had a moment of clarity, at the very least you could call it, an epiphany of sorts, that as above, so below. That by really truly looking deep inside myself, allowing some intuition to come through, pushing past my own ego, that there was potential, there was opportunity, I don't know how to put it into words exactly, but it was just something that I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that if I listened, if I paid attention, that it was always going to be there for me.
So cool, man. What was I got a lot of questions to follow up on that, but during the program, when the 65-minute meditation was introduced, what was your first thought?
Are you insane? Like how? Like literally how? I mean, I never successfully had a successful meditation. When I say successful meditation, I mean sitting down for more than 5 minutes and, guided or not, actually just be still. You had a way of presenting this that for me broke through some boundaries that I hadn't broken through before. You had some background, some stories, some experiences that kind of made it a little bit more visceral in some respects, that, well, if this guy can do it, like I have to be able to do it, right? And your presentation there was that it doesn't have to be perfect. And this is kind of a running theme throughout Painter Growth, within the Accelerator, Intuitive Accelerator, and without. Done is better than perfect. And until it's like a muscle, until you have worked it a few times, it's not going to be a very easy thing to accomplish. But once you've worked it a few times, it gets easier and easier.
Yeah, very, very, very well said. And ultimately, going back to ego or intuition, it's not saying your ego's wrong or your ego's bad with it, but as you start to tap into your intuition and how it speaks to you, and we can go into how that goes a little bit if we go down that path, but as you start to listen to your intuition, it's more so then partnering with your ego or the character that you're playing as James Mitchell here, and starting to pull the strings from that level on James versus, James, the character, thinks that he's running the show. Right. Because that's ultimately that shift. It's not about eliminating your ego or saying your ego's bad or necessarily even ego death. It's being able to partner with your ego to play this game at the highest level possible. And that's what's available, right? And as we start to think about running a business from this place of love instead of fear, instead of just running around trying to fill those wounds or seeking that external validation, it's like you're so comfortable in knowing who you are that you begin to ultimately become a magnet, and then a magnet to attract opportunities to you, to attract sales, to attract revenue, to attract good people to your business without even having to do anything, because of your frequency that you start to vibrate at and who you are. Now, in that, I remember a lot of people when I introduced the 65-minute meditation, I said, who here thinks they don't have time for 65 minutes in the morning? And I think 90% of the people, put up their hand in the group.
All but two, maybe.
Yeah. So, all but two. So probably 90% of the people in the group. And I gave the advice that one of my mentors gave to me. He said, well, if you don't have time to meditate for 65 minutes in the morning, then I recommend you meditate for 65 minutes in the morning and 65 minutes in the evening. When I said that, what hit you?
That sounds impossible. I'm pretty sure I don't have time to spend 2 hours a day in meditation. So I better give the 1 hour a good, strong shot.
Now, when you started to get into a really good flow on this, right? Like you started doing upwards of 3 65-minute meditations a week during the program. You experienced this, what we call divine flow, that once you tap into it, once you've known it, you've experienced it, you can't unsee it. You can't unfeel it at that point.
Right.
But when you were investing that time into consistently doing the 65-minute meditation, what started to happen in your business?
So you mentioned a little while ago that like problems don't go away, but the finding solutions, like intuitively identifying solutions to the problems, all of a sudden became more instinctual. Things that I didn't have to stop and be like, well, how am I going to solve this? All of a sudden my calendar started filling up with estimates. I'm not kidding you. It was 20 estimates a week for like 6 or 8 weeks there. And it was like nothing I've ever experienced before in business or otherwise. It was like a flow. Spend 5 minutes before walking in the door, walking up and knocking on the door for that estimate, just like really asking the universe, what can I do? How can I best serve this individual? And when they'd open their door, I would just know how to address. And I sold at a very high rate, very quickly. Booked out 4 crews that we didn't have. It was amazing.
So cool. So one thing that starts to happen as you meditate more, and meditation is just one tool component in terms of the intuition accelerator or the intuitive advantage that we do, but it's an important tool. But as you begin to meditate, and again, meditation is not about not thinking, right? Meditation is about allowing yourself to process things and give your brain time and space to download information. And even myself, when I meditate, upwards of 1 to 3 hours a day. Maybe a little bit less right now because I have a newborn, but normally, 1 to 3 hours a day. Even with that volume, I generally find that first 30 to 35 minutes, it's literally just allowing my brain to process all the stimulus that I've taken on today, which has a lot of thoughts come up. And then after that time, it starts to settle in, and I'm able to go deeper from that standpoint. What I would say in meditation is it starts with quantity, and then it starts to become more quality. But there is an element of just an element of that volume of quantity that you need to do to just allow, if you have never done meditation and you're 30 years or 40 years old right now, you got a lot of years to catch up on for your brain to catch up and actually download that information, right? Now, you got into that flow, you're all of a sudden, almost like magic, literally, 20 estimates start to pop up, you start booking out 4 crews. Naturally, when you start meditating more and you allow the universe to work for you, what starts to happen, and the reason why it's important to continue meditating, because when you meditate, the world starts to slow down, right? In front of you, it starts to slow down. And so even though from the outside looking in, it might seem like there's chaos going on, but when you continuously meditate, it doesn't feel like that internally. However, if you don't stay on that and you kind of lose some of the discipline, you aren't doing the meditation, which happened in your case. What happened when you weren't meditating as much after all these amazing things started to happen? What happened in that period?
The chaos started to break through. So one of my member of my team came to me here a couple of months ago after I'd gotten back into the routine of meditating regularly daily. And he's like, man, it's just so amazing to watch you as like what seems like the world is falling apart around you. The crews aren't doing what they're supposed to. Clients are pissed off about something that didn't happen right, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He's like, you just seem so calm. Like you don't seem like you're like freaking out about it and it occurred to me, and I just looked over, I'm like, you know what? I spend a lot of time in meditation. Truly without that, the chaos for me finds its way in and makes life a whole lot more difficult. Again, not that the chaos isn't there while I'm meditating regularly, but addressing the chaotic moments, moment by moment, becomes a whole lot easier to live right now in the moment rather than in the, well, what's going to happen tomorrow if this doesn't go right?
Right.
What can we do right now? And it's way easier to break that into a right now scenario when I meditate regularly.
Right. Really, really well said there. And the thing that you said in the meditations that we've done throughout the program, we generally start off and we completely let go of everything in the past, and we completely let go of anything that's to come in the future to allow yourself to arrive right here, right now. Because when you actually arrive right here, right now, in this moment, is the moment, it's the only moment that the divine universe, whatever you want to call it, intersect with the present moment. It's right now, and it's right now, and it's right now. It's not, it wasn't just in the few seconds in the past. It's not tomorrow. It's not in a few weeks. It's literally only right now. That's the only time. If you tap into that, then miracles happen at any given moment, right?
Real quick, I just want to use a quick metaphor regarding the consistent meditation, miracles happening, less meditation, chaos more apparent. You can almost think of it like being on a weight loss journey.
Yeah.
As long as you maintain what the journey set forth for you in order to achieve your weight loss goals, you will continue to move towards those goals. If you step away from your journey, start eating whatever you want, more sweets, more whatever, then you, essentially fall off the wagon, as it were. And of course, you're not going to continue to lose weight. You're going to start feeling worse about yourself. You're going to start to gain the weight back. And in order to, in my opinion, it's a way easier to get back onto this particular journey train, back into meditation, than it would be for a weight loss journey gone sideways. So that is one huge benefit to meditation for me, is that it just requires a very simple, habitual, everyday type process.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. The other one I like to think about too is, when your house is relatively clean, like how quickly it is to just clean it up and it looks really good, versus when you let your house get really messy, how much effort it takes to get the house looking good. It's the same idea. Whether it's your fitness, whether it's meditation, whether it's your house, it's the same thing. That once you get into maintenance phase, it's considerably easier than that kind of breakthrough, just to get to the point of your your house being clean or to the desired weight that you want. It's just, it feels a little bit more subjective when it's meditation, because you don't have as much measuring sticks. So, versus like your weight or your house clean, you can see it very clearly. But with meditation, it's impacting every area of your life. And my wife and I are talking about the same thing with supplements, right? We're like, I don't realize the effect of supplements until I don't take them for a few days. And then I'm like, oh man, I don't feel that great. Right. I would say it's the same thing across the board there. But yeah, man, I just want to acknowledge you for, going again from 5 minutes to feeling overwhelmed to consistently getting into 65 minutes, or just making it a daily habit of at least, a little bit of a meditation to get into that routine is huge. And a lot of people try to do it, and meditation is not a new thing, right? But for business owners, especially entrepreneurs, when you have a lot going on, just going back to that comment in the beginning of my mentor, when he's like, if you don't have 65 minutes to meditate in the morning, well, then meditate 65 minutes in the evening. Because the reason why we say that, because when you actually start to sit down, you actually let the universe start to work for you, and it starts to eliminate those issues, and they don't become issues anymore. And it starts to open up your world in an entirely different way. And so when I think about meditation, people are like, how do you, spend an hour to 3 hours a day in meditation? It's because I get immediate payoff from it. I get immediate dividends from it. And the best gift that I can give to any fathers or mothers listening out there, I have 2 young children under 2 now. And the best gift that I can give to a parent is encourage them to meditate, because it completely slows down your perception, and you get to enjoy the little beings in there considerably more. And that's like the one thing as a parent that I'm like, it goes by really fast. Now that I'm in it, I'm like, this is crazy. That the best gift that I think I give to any parents listening out there is encourage you to meditate, make that investment, because you immediately get the dividend. You immediately get that payoff, because your whole world slows down, and you can watch your child and observe them in a totally different perspective.
Giving yourself an opportunity to actually be more present.
Yes.
Like that muscle, actively being more present for the meditation process is a great tool to be able to apply to many other areas of your daily life, so that you are likely to be more present for all of the things.
Love it. So we've talked a lot about meditation. Again, that's just one, component of the intuition work that we've done. If we can kind of bring it full stop, so people know, how would you describe yourself, or in your internal dialogue a year ago to where it is today? And just talk a little bit about that.
That's a really good question. My internal dialogue a year ago was extremely haptic, very defeatist, honestly. I'd spent several years chasing a business dream that had recently reached a point that was obvious that I wasn't going to be able to do what I wanted to do. And the majority of my inner thought processes and monologues was just, how am I going to get past this? How am I going to get to next month? How am I going to get through the winter? What type of an opportunity could possibly be out there for me to get out of this cycle of defeat? And I'd spent many years in the defeat, to a pretty large degree, mostly because I believe I just didn't know. I didn't know how to live right now. I didn't know how to understand how to be in the moment. I keep referencing meditation, and I understand it is just one tool kind of in the tool bag there, but it's the one that made the most difference for me. Now, obviously, everybody's going to have a different journey. Everybody's going to have a slightly different experience with the whole thing. But that was the biggest impactful item for me. And I mean, if I was to go through your Accelerator again in 2 years, I'd probably see it from a whole new perspective. Be able to pick out other bits and pieces that would be meaningful had I been open to them in that moment.
What do you think that? And sorry, I'll just let you finish the second part of the question, which is, how are you seeing the world today
now? So much lighter, so much brighter. Not just because my business is growing in an extreme rate and providing a lot of potential for monetary success, but my relationships have been stronger. My connections, all of my connections have been better and more meaningful. More meaningful across the board. My friends I connect with on a deeper level. I'm spending a lot less time talking about me, and a whole lot more time asking about them. I've spent a huge chunk of my life talking about me because I thought I was so cool. But
I mean, to be fair, you are cool.
Well, thanks, Jesse. I've always felt like I had a lot to share, a lot to be able to, to help other people with, but have rarely taken the time to learn how to help myself. And if I'm not able to help myself, then I can't deliver helpfulness for others at a higher level, which is what I would like to be able to do. So internally, I can't think of anything that isn't better. The relationship I have with my girlfriend is so much better than it was. We communicate so much better because of that, again, ability to recognize being in the moment. And again, back to the meditation, something that helped me with there in that regard is just the ability to not necessarily turn off everything around me, but to be able to allow sounds, thoughts, etc., that may be coming at me during the experience of meditating, to just kind of allow them to float by. And that's something that I didn't know is even humanly possible. So being in the moment is easier in my relationships, because random thoughts that come in and used to interrupt my connection, where I would have to speak or I'd forget what I was going to say, they can go on by and it doesn't matter. So it allows my connections with just about everybody to be deeper and more meaningful.
Where, you've probably not thought about this, and I just thought about this right now. So where do you think you'd be today had we never done the Intuition Accelerator and Intuitive Advantage the whole last year?
Boy, obviously it's hard to say what would or wouldn't have happened. I'm a pretty passionate, driven guy. I feel like I would be hard pressed to, give up on a dream, but I may have given up. In the middle of the summer, when it was impossible or seemingly impossible to get from one day to the next, I had a couple of moments where I did almost give up, because, I wasn't making any money. I was putting in all the work. I was paying everybody else well, but I wasn't making anything. And I couldn't figure out why. And I did for 3 days. I almost gave it all up and walked away. During those 3 days, I spent an exorbitant amount of time in meditation to try and find that feeling that would just make it okay. Knowing that whatever came at me, however it came at me, not only do I have a wonderful set of tools that you kind of gave us in the Intuitive Accelerator to be able to move through it, but I also had a phenomenal support group behind me. And you've seen several of the oh my God, I'm in the dumps messages that I shared with the group, like, somebody please tell me it's going to be okay. And without that, I don't know. Maybe a whole different world in front of me. A much, much darker one.
Very, very, very cool. I appreciate you being so vulnerable and honest with that. I know with the amount of growth that you're having, naturally, there's going to be some crazy challenges that you're going through. And to see you go through those challenges, to have moments of clearing that were required, from your people, and being able to see how that actually opened up, the next realm of your business, the next level. And again, to go through, when you start doing this type of work, I never once said, challenges or problems were going to go away, right? But it's the way you're able to flow through it and how the universe, aligns for you completely changes. And so your perception starts to change of it. And then what opens up from you there, well, is an entire new world, and the world that you've really begun to step into. And I'm just so excited to see your business evolve over the coming years. Now that, I'd say it feels like we're just at the start. I keep saying it, but it just feels like we're at the start line, right? Now we can actually build upon this to see what's possible in your life and business. And the concept that you're talking about, just so people out there, and I see it in a lot of entrepreneurs, is they're so good at serving and giving to others, especially when they're in a business owner context. I will providing these opportunities for painters, providing these opportunities for a sales rep, production manager, subcontractors, all that. But in the midst of that, it's very easy to forget to take care of yourself. And as cliche as it can sound, it's like putting on your own oxygen mask first actually allows you to then serve at a considerably higher level. Spiritually, Yogananda talked about the highest form of in the human life is actually something called higher selfishness, which is serving your higher self first. Then from that standpoint, you're able to serve at a considerably higher level. But a lot of people get to the point of like, they think service to others is the highest realm. And I would say I fell into that bucket for a long time too. But now that I can see it from the realm of higher selfishness, right? Being in alignment with your higher self, taking care of yourself there, you're actually able to then give back at such a rate that compounds everything in such a positive direction much, much, much quicker. And I've seen you make that shift now. Because early in the year when you were struggling with your gross profit, you were consistently serving other people, creating those opportunities. Now seeing you make that shift of putting James and serving your higher self there first, not only are you considerably more profitable, how much better is your team now and your culture?
Oh yeah, amazing. Much more thoroughly bought in, as it were. We're able to provide a much more significant bonus structure for them, better incentives for their own personal growth. So not only their personal feeling of betterness because they have grown, because they have learned, because they have increased, but increasing their physical capacity or efficiency, also giving them opportunity for greater bonuses. Gives us more opportunity as a company to be able to take the crews out when they do really well, to do fun things together. Go to the mini go-kart track and have some races. And it's been a really, really neat thing. Something I would never have thought I could have accomplished, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, it's so good. And I feel like we could chat about this for the next, 10 hours if we wanted to. We're barely scratching the surface, but I know we're getting close on time. But I do got to ask you something, because one other thing that we've been doing pretty consistently within the Pain and Growth community now too, and it really created it's hard to put into words, but at the high performance day, the day after the mastermind, we did a breathwork session to kick off the day. It was a very intense breathwork session. It was probably the most intense one that I've ever facilitated. From your experience in that morning breathwork session, just tell me about your experience. What happened to you in that breathwork session?
That's a difficult one to put into words, for sure. It was, without a doubt, one of the most intense experiences of probably my entire life. There was an emotional release. There was a spiritual release that I literally don't even know how to put it into words. It was, in a way, almost like God reached right down into my soul and ripped a big old pile of pain and historical just BS that just, was weighing me down, pulling me down, and like putting me in a position of self-sabotage that I didn't know, again, how to get out of. That might have been one of the most pivotal moments of my experience with Pain or Growth so far, in just being able to not be in my own way. If you've never done a breathwork session, there's a lot to be had there. It may not be outrageous or over the top the first couple times, but again, one of those scenarios. Jesse, you did a really impressive job, I thought, in leading that particular breath session, because it wasn't just me. I think every single member of that particular group that was in that breathwork session felt the same type of energy. And you obviously felt that as well, and were able to kind of help channel that for each one of us in a way that was unbelievable.
So well said. I know it's hard to put it into words, but I think people, the depths that you're talking about right now is, the compounding of how deep, you're willing to go and look at yourself, and then the experiences and what you're talking about of, God or divine universe, whatever you want to call it, coming in and removing, generational trauma. Like, these are really deep topics to go into, right? And for somebody that has never heard any of these terms before, James has put in the work and he's going on the path and looking at every aspect of himself to, as he heals, he's getting to the root of all these things, so that on the other side of it, his life, his relationships, his business, everything is just thriving in a way that that it, wouldn't be possible otherwise, because of the work he's doing on himself. And it's just so beautiful to see. And I appreciate what you said about me facilitating. I always say it's not me. I'm just a conduit for the divine or universe to work through me in those moments. But it's really profound what happens when we have a group like that. And we had 20 people in that breathwork session, and it just, I think, blew everybody's hearts wide open. And it was profound is an understatement to say.
It was a life-changing experience. I know we're talking to usually a bunch of painters on this podcast, and they might be going like, what the heck is this? I may have said the same thing before experiencing a lot of these things, but life-changing, truly.
So cool, man. James, I appreciate you taking the time. It's been an honor being part of your journey, especially over the last year and doing this deep work. I'm super grateful that you're part of the Pain and Growth community. You're such a valuable member, valuable human being, and it's really, truly impressive to see someone like yourself. When you come in, you just throw your hat over the wall, you throw everything over the wall. You're willing to look at anything and everything to improve yourself, to improve your life, to improve your business. And man, like I said, we're just getting started here. So thanks for being here again today.
Thanks for having me, Jesse.
Awesome. And wrap. Awesome, man. That was fun.
Thanks for listening to the Painter Growth Podcast. If you want to grow your painting business, go to www.paintergrowth.com or click on the top link in the description. Talk soon.